Hello, my friends. What's up? Donut will come on here in a second. Yeah, a little tired today, but still waking up. What's up, Mike? What's up, friends? Yeah, if you guys want to check out these full-length conversations, we just got the YouTube up about a week ago. So we got full episodes up on the YouTube. This conversation with Donut will be up there as well. I'm getting some clips up there. And we'll have an audio podcast version as well. So check that out. Let me see. Donut should be coming on in a second. How's everybody doing today? We've got a bunch of good questions, and we'll get into some stuff. I know I've been talking to John Castelli every week, and we've been talking about some super nerdy mixing stuff, which is I think of interest to a lot of people. But we will, Donut and I will get into more production and that sort of thing. So just waiting for him to show up in a second here. Yeah, we got a lot of good questions. There's some questions about vocal chains and vocal gear and things like that. Donut has a really interesting setup. So we'll be getting into some of that as well. Let's see. Where's Donut at? Just added him. He should be coming on in a second. Let's see. There it is.
Oh, buddy.
So how are you doing this morning, my friend?
Man, it's just starting, bro. I went to bed at like 6 o'clock. I'm hungry. It's time, bro.
Did you get up early and make beats?
No, I'm really just woke up an hour ago, man. But you know what? I did scroll down my timeline, and I'm looking for new speakers now. Like, I'm just a freaking gear junkie, bro. Like, I don't.
It's an interesting thing. You and I talk about this a lot, but like the idea of switching things up for creative inspiration is a huge part of what you and I both love. I mean, you know, I've been doing some of these lives with, saying a second ago, with John Castelli, who's a super mixer, and a lot of his thing is dialing in the perfect setup for him to mix. But I think for you and I that are producing and writing, there's so much about being inspired and finding an environment that continually changes and moves you and pushes you. And even when I met you, you came over to the house here, and you were like so excited because you were about to move into a new spot, and you were talking about what you were going to do. And I mean, that's everything, man.
But then I saw your spot, and I'm like, I want those fucking soundproof things in the back. I want the whole. If they saw your setup, it'd be crazy. He has a crazy setup, man. Super.
I might do like a gear tutorial. It's one of the things that when I been talking to John, he doesn't like talking about gear, but you and I love talking about gear.
Well,
so how is your setup right now?
I can show you guys.
Yeah,
I'll show them at the end. No, I'll show them at the end. So basically, I went and purchased barefoot MM26s. I felt like I had the 27s back in the day, and those things gave me the perfect, like, I can make a beat and not even have to mix it. I just send it out, and it's already done, you know? And those were the first speakers that I thought were like that. I'm the first guy that had the desk, the Quantica desk. It's 1 to 10. You can put your own monitors on it. So I kind of like took some Apple monitors and took the back off and put some mounts on them. And, now I have this like futuristic looking desk that I'm probably going to end up selling and getting another desk, because I've had about 6 desks just because I'm addicted. I have a problem. I have an issue.
Tell me.
You know? Guitar Center called it gear acquisition syndrome. You know, it's just buying and selling gear, man. It's so crazy, but it definitely helps me be creative, because it's like, I personally don't think you can know what you want sometimes until you've tried things, you know? So I'm the guy that's like, let me buy the PMCs. Let me go buy this. Let me go buy that. And everything has a different feel to me. Every speaker has a different feel. Even if you had like, oh, thank you, Jerry. Yeah. Even if you had the perfectly soundproof room, you're always going to want to switch it up, whether it's with lighting, like you said earlier, just to catch a new vibe, you know?
Well, this is an important thing to think about too, that trying to keep yourself inspired and keep in momentum is a really big part of what you and I do, because you know that there are technical people, there are mixers, or certain people that like want to get their setup and get it to feel a certain way. But I think for you and I, it's really like, let's get the new thing. Let's plug into something new. Let's push ourselves. I mean, you and I have been talking the last couple of weeks where it's funny to look at your Instagram, and it feels like you're making 4 beats a day every day. And yet when you talk to me, you're like, I'm not really feeling inspired, or maybe I'm not in it, or I'm taking a day off. And yet you're there making shit, but you're making shit every day.
Okay, so I think there's a thing to be said about just practice, you know, just basically practicing and kind of maybe like stumbling on something that could be like super great, you know. But then there's the thing of like really, really doing it. So I don't personally think I've made a beat until it's fully in Pro Tools, meaning like the stems are in Pro Tools. I did some type of leveling and I bounced it out from Pro Tools. That's when I feel like I've actually made a track.
So you feel right like your creative process is almost like a 2-step process, where you have the part where you're just being creative and you're just throwing ideas out there, and then you have like the finishing part.
Correct. Well, and the whole thing is I don't want to finish. So like that's why I bought all the equipment so that it's finished then, because I don't want to go back to it. And you know that. Like I'm either the guy that's going to create the ideas, or I'm the guy that's going to finish your already created idea. It's one of the two. Like, I think if I had to sit down here and really articulate it, man, it sucks having to do things that feel like work.
Yeah.
So I'm always just trying to make sure that it doesn't feel like work and it always feels fun. So yeah, I think that's the kind of like the answer to that shit, in my opinion.
We got a bunch of questions and probably too many to even do in an hour. But one of the themes of it,
let's do it. Let's speed it up. Let's get them all done.
Themes. Yeah. Well, one of the themes of it is a number of people were asking questions about starting out and basically like how to connect with people, how to level up as a producer. And I feel like the way you're talking about things there, it's really important that you may not be good at doing every part of the process. You may not be inspired to do every part of the process. Finding collaborators, finding anybody to work with. I mean, you and I have worked on a few things recently where it really has been just throwing things back and forth. And that's way better than having the pressure of I both have to be like the artist coming up with the idea and the finisher at the same time. It's nice to have, even though you and I can both do both parts of the process.
I think you do it better. I think you definitely do it better. You're a better finisher than most people I've met, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, it's something that I do a bit more of, and I do a bit more mixing and that sort of thing. But it's also nice to be able to start ideas and throw them to other people. That collaborative relationship with other producers, not just with artists, which obviously that's important too. We can get into that conversation. And you now being an artist and releasing some things as an artist, we can talk about that. There's a lot of questions about releasing music, but that idea of collaboration really being kind of everything, especially with how technology is these days. The idea that you can throw an idea together in 10 minutes, throw me stems, I kick it back to you in an hour. Like that's the way. That's the way for everybody to that, and you start seeing other people's process that better than any school, better than any YouTube tutorial, any of that sort of stuff. It's like collaborate with people, throw beats back and forth. I've been doing that a ton with people.
Definitely. I think collaboration is really, really, really crazy. Let's get to the questions, man, because I see it's a lot of stuff, man. I see it.
Yeah. So one of the questions was really about, okay, so you just released stuff for the first time. And that was like 6 weeks ago? How long ago was that?
May 8th on my birthday. May 8th.
Oh, May 8th. That's right. You know the date exactly. So a little bit longer than that. What I think it would be interesting to like, what got you to that point where you started wanting to release things? So I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, how do I release things? Right. What do I do it? How do I go about promoting it? All that kind of stuff. But maybe you could just talk about what that process was for you.
You know, it's really interesting with that because I feel like I've always, and you've probably been the same way, where when you're sending out these these sketches to songwriters, or if you're sending out sketches to the labels, it's almost like you, the producer, you kind of have a cheat code, because you kind of know like the counter melodies that might work with the beat that you created. So it came down to like a process of like, I'm making these beats and I'm doing these scratch melodies, and then I'm sending them out to my friends, and then my friends are sending me back legitimately greater stuff. They're putting words to those melodies, and they're just making these crazy pieces. And then you're sending these things out, and it might not fit for any artist that exists at the present moment. You know, you have that type of situation. So with me, I kind of just woke up one day and was like, I like Calvin Harris, for instance. And, you know, when I look at Calvin Harris, I like him for a reason, because he's able to do multiple genres of music and not have to be like put in this box, you know? So when I started Girls Love Donuts, it was like I had this song that I did this scratch melody on, and I sent it to one of my brothers, DeCarlo, and he did the song for that. And that song was originally going to be for placement. I remember when I did the song, I know exactly where I was and like what I was going through in my mind, and I just needed someone to like articulate that. So then he did that, and it was just one of those things where it's like, you know what? I'm going to release this, but I'm going to do it a little differently. So I called on my guy, Vox God. He mixed Old Town Road. So I was like, if I'm going to call in and if I'm going to do it, I want to do it at the highest level, you know? So I called him, and obviously I didn't want to, I could pay him $3,500, but I was just like, hey man, I'll give you a percentage of this record if you can do this mix. Bam. Bartering. Then I obviously asked for permission from DeCarlo if it was something I could release. So then we did a trade for a trade. So now he has a song that he's going to release with a track that I did. And then there was the artwork that was done by my boy, Mike, who did the Weed cover. So I was like, oh, he's a great graphic designer. Let me do that. Paid, you know, boom. There was another guy that did the animation, paid him $150, you know. And then it's another piece where I talked to a distributor, and it's a guy named Danger, and we worked out a deal, and he started pumping the record. We're probably at like 90,000 right now. It's going to keep going, you know. Just Synced in the Shy, which is a TV series coming out next month. And it's just up from there. It's just one, I look at it as real estate. It's one house for a collection of houses that I'm going to put out.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a lot of what that process was for you was using your relationships, because you've done so many things with so many different people and built these great relationships, that it's the collaborations you've done in the past have actually allowed you to then make a record for yourself and call those favors in, and people are down for it because you've been there for other people. You show up.
Ooh. Such a blessing, man. I always believe in a concept of not being transactional in this industry. So I hope that might answer one of the questions. It's like, how do you get in this music industry? How can you help someone? How can you not be transactional? You'd be surprised. I'm getting about 20 emails a week for packs. Yo, I got these samples. I got these samples. I got these samples. And most people don't realize that they're literally sending the exact same samples. Like everyone's kind of doing the same thing because they might be listening to what's going on the radio now. And I'm the guy that's like, well, if you're hearing things on the radio, you're 6 months behind. So what's the future? Like, you know, and are you sending me the future? So I think people have it down packed where they're like, oh yeah, let's collaborate. But they're probably sending out a pack to like 20 people, or they're cold calling, you know, and then someone uses this sample and then it's just like a whole thing. So I would say, you know, the collaboration process is cool, but you should definitely figure out how you can help someone's situation. Simple as that.
Yeah, how you can add value to people's shit. I mean, I think a lot of people, and it's a totally natural thing to try to make connections to people and say like, hey, I'm willing to help you, or I'm willing to do whatever, or ask for feedback, or try to take somebody to lunch and those sort of things. But the thing that eclipses all that shit is, hey, I got these things that are great. Let me send them to you. Let me collaborate with you. Let me offer you value. That shit is that's kind of everything, because there's so many people that can make records now that what separates you from the rest of the pack?
That too. And then another thing that I would say is consistency. Like if you really, 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 truly believe that I and you would make this crazy thing, it's like, do you tap in? Do you get discouraged if someone doesn't hit you back? If you do get discouraged because someone hasn't hit you back over your particular records, can you accept criticism? Honestly, open criticism without feeling away. and bringing that energy to those people that you're trying to get to. You know, I think it's something to be said about that. You know, just genuinely doing something without trying to be transactional. Hey, I really want to help you, Matt. Here, can I give you these things? Boom. It's like, sure. Then it's like, yo, let's go over here and do this thing. Cool. You know, it's not transactional. I want to help you. I don't need anything from you. All right, here you go. Boom. We'll just do even real business. And then, you know, to the next one, you know, and that's kind of
the reality is just a large percentage of time for everybody in this industry is not getting called back, not getting people not responding, people being late to shit, people being inconsistent. Like if you can be consistently positive and show up and be reliable, you're actually ahead of like 95% of people.
Man, it's crazy,
like,
isn't it?
How many people are really reliable? Really? What percentage of people are really reliable?
I would say it's 3%, probably. Maybe 3%.
3%?
You know? Yeah, I would say 3% of people are reliable. Because you got to think about it, like those people that aren't reliable, you don't really blame them. It might be situational. Like somebody might need to pay rent. So they're like, well, I'm only available for what pays my rent. I get it.
Yeah,
you know, at the end of the day,
I get it too.
I just, you know, but I also see how people prioritize things off of just status. I think the goal in music to me is to get into a creative flow, a momentum, so that you can crank out a bunch of things while being creative and not being so hard on yourself if you're not creative, and also not being so hard on yourself if you're not where you want to be. Just kind of objectively looking at it and being like, well, where do I want to be, and who's in the position that I want to be in? You know what I'm saying? Mars, he's one of the guys. You know what I'm saying? Just another dude. Like, you know, I feel like Mars and he's one of the 1,500. You know, like crazy producer. He's done some of the craziest shit ever. And you know, it's like I've known him for such a long time. It's like, yo, and it's never been a like, yo, man, when we getting into work, you know, I'm not ever making someone feel like they have to do anything for me. I'm blessed. Like if I didn't do music, I would have been in architecture. Love, bro. I would have been in architecture. I would have been doing something else. I would have been making money. Making money is one small part of being creative. And I think that's one of the things that people need to stop doing. The reason why it's only 3% of consistency is because there's just people that just want to be rich. So they're just like, I can download Fruity Loops. I can just make these quick beats real quick and sell them for $50, $100, you know, whatever. They don't really love music, man. And I think anything that you truly don't love, how can you be a superstar in it?
It's a very low percentage of people that are successful that are just trying to be rich. You know, so much of the music industry, like when you really work with the top people, every one of those people's like trying to make the best music, trying to make the best art, and relentlessly frustrated. It's everything.
By the way, next thing you do, you gotta have Mars on this, bro. He's gonna spit some gems. He's gonna spit some gems. Pop, man, get him on there because he's crazy.
I would love that.
All right.
One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was the different programs, because a lot of people ask those questions. I actually started out on Cubase when I was a teenager, and I know they're just sort of randomly. And then when I worked for this producer Eric Valentine for years, I learned Pro Tools and was like 15 years in on Pro Tools, going crazy. And then just about a year and a half ago, I switched over to Ableton.
Ableton.
And you know, and Ableton, as many people will recognize, is just so much faster as a creative tool than Pro Tools.
Right.
But I also, you know, there's so many things about it. There's so many things about it that are like, you can't quite edit audio in the same way, and there's no playlists, so doing vocals is more challenging and all that kind of stuff. But yet I know a lot of people who use Logic, which is sort of in between. I know you use Fruity Loops, or I don't know if I'm supposed to call it FL Studio or what I'm supposed to call it now, but you kind of
I call it Fruity Loops because back in the day,
things.
I use them all, and it's really interesting. So when I started music, I obviously didn't really know what I was into, so I got the Fruity Loops, and I hated FL Studio at the time because it was ancient. It was like little blocks and stuff. So I ended up doing the MPC, like the actual 2000 XL. They go into the 4000. You know, real hands-on stuff. So I can like chop up.
So hold on.
MPC
so when you started, you were MPC, and then what was your DAW? What was your computer program that you were actually using?
I honestly,
Like you burn it to a CD? Like how did you get it?
It went into Pro Tools, but I was with hardware, so it was like MPC 4000, Triton Extreme, Roland Phantom. Like it was a time where if you wanted to be a producer, you had to spend $10,000 because it was like the MPC cost exactly the name. So if it was 2000 XL, it cost 2000. If it was a fucking MPC 4000, it was $3,900.
And now your iPhone has more power than any of those machines. But back in the day,
100%.
They were the things. That's all you could do.
That was the entry level buy-in. So most people couldn't be producers because they didn't buy in to the hardware that was needed to do it. So you didn't have all the, I would call them riffraffs in a way, hobbyists that come in. They really just like, yo, let me click some shit. Let me do some shit. Let's figure this shit out. And obviously you can definitely do that. But anyway, I moved from there. When I switched to software, I remember I was in a studio. It was 2007. It was these guys in Philly and they were using Logic, and it was 2007. So it was like Logic. It wasn't even 9. It might have been an earlier Logic when Logic was PC. When Logic used to be on PC. It was like Imagine.
Before Apple bought it, before all of that. Yeah.
Right. So, so they're on there and they're talking VSTs. And it was so foreign to me that I was just like, I'm not fucking with that shit, bro. So what ends up happening is I moved to Atlanta in 2008. And when I moved to Atlanta, I sold all the hardware. I had to make a decision. I was like, I'm going to be traveling to Atlanta. It's a new city. I need to go portable. So what I ended up doing was selling all the shit, MPC, Triton Extreme, Phantom, all that stuff. And then I went and bought a laptop and Logic. So then you're talking about Logic 9, and Logic 9 was fire. Logic 9 was crazy, but it never updated. And then when it went to Logic 10, I was like, oh, hell no. And I went to Ableton. Right.
So why did you make that switch?
Because Logic 10 was so ugly at the time. Like it didn't do it changed a lot of the things that I was doing. So I went to Ableton, and then Ableton opened up a whole thing because you could like drag in loops and it would just flip it out. But I found using all those programs that everything had to end up in Pro Tools still. Mm-hmm. I couldn't get the sound that Pro Tools delivers. So then I figured out what the programs are, and I can tell you what program you used to make that beat. I've made beats in Cubase, Reason, which is crazy, not good. Crazy, not good. Listen, Reason is not good.
I know some people who use Reason, but I don't ever really fuck with it.
So the way I look at placement, so DCat, drums that knock, you got to have him on here because he'll geek out. Yeah. So me and Decaf, whatever, maybe we FaceTime maybe like a month or two ago, and because he said something on Twitter, which he was like, yeah, you can't tell the difference. I think he was talking about Unity gain, like where you basically balance out things from different things and you kind of put them on top of each other, invert it, and it's like the same thing. That's cool. But I was like, yo, I can tell you what you used. If he said like Ableton and FL, he was like, which one? He had 5 things, and I picked 4 out of the 5. And he was like, well, how do you know these things? I'm over here like, well, if you must know, Ableton's hi-hats sound different. They sound thinner than FL Studio hi-hats. The same hi-hat pattern. You could drag the MIDI from Ableton, same sound in FL Studio, and the hi-hats sound more in your face in FL and more behind in Ableton.
People say that in the bussing on FL Studio has a certain kind of distortion and crunch on the high end. And that's with like Murder Beats and all those, like there's something about those drums, the way they distort into the master bus in FL Studio is different than the rest of the programs.
It has to be the summing on that makes the difference between all of them. So Ableton to me sounds paper thin in some areas. Logic sounds rich in piano sound. Any instrument, if you're doing the Logic, it's going to sound rich and full. If you do the MPC, the drums are going to hit just as hard, if not harder, in the swing as far as the, how it feels on the groove. That's going to lock in way tighter. Then you have Ableton, which is like, if you just want to drag in loops, time stretch loops, warp them in a fast, convenient way, Ableton is the way to go. You know what I'm saying? FL Studio, if you just want to use a mouse click in or whatever, it's just super easy to just really dial in things, The
FL Studio is like it has a more graphical interface. People draw things in. It's sort of a simpler program, but on some level, if your creative flow can be simple, sometimes that's the best thing.
Yeah, I think I use everything for different things. So I use FL Studio for
Yeah, go through them. Go through each one. What do you creatively, like, philosophically, like, what do you like about each one?
Okay, so
yeah, I say Ahmad Jamal. These will be on my IGTV, and we'll put this up. We'll have an audio version too, so check that out after.
Cool, man.
Go ahead.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. So if I wanted to do something that was sample based, something that maybe like Kanye or even just Blaze or someone like that, even Harry Fraud, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would use the MPC. It gives me way more control when I want to slice things up and hit the pads and just feel the sample. I don't think you can feel a chop to me unless you're on a pad. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're sitting down there on a keyboard, it's just not responsive to me. So I would 100% do MPC for that. FL Studio is surgical. You want those 808s to hit. You want those drums to knock. You want something that sounds like radio at the present moment. You want to go to FL Studio. If you want to do something that's like scoring, if you want to do something that's going to go crazy, you probably want to do either Logic or Cubase, you know? If you want to do, where are we at? Reason's weird, man. Reason's just weird. So I don't even want to go into it. I know people that do it, you know what I'm saying? I just actually there's a guy named Maserati Sparks. And he's a freaking sample creative. Like, if you buy his packs, he makes some really tight shit, and he uses Reason, so he's able to make some really solid things. But I don't know if he's shared his process. But when I see his screen, it looks complicated. It doesn't look like it's something that most people want to get into. And Pro Tools is like the best thing ever, because Pro Tools, if it sounds shitty in Pro Tools, it's going to sound shitty everywhere else. Pro Tools is one of those things where when you, he said Reaper is the secret truth. I remember Reaper. Reaper used to crash a lot, and then it didn't have a good recall. The same with Studio One. I know, like, Sock Passe uses Studio One, and a guy named Tushar, a couple people. Studio One is the closest thing to Pro Tools and Cubase. But the problem is, if you were to upgrade to Battery 4.2, if you were using Battery, and it goes to 4.3, it loses the presets from your old sessions. So you would have to do really good note taking, and you would have to print stems. So I guess in my process, I never lose audio with Pro Tools. I never lose audio with FL Studio. I never lose audio with MPC.
Yeah, it's
and Ableton also too.
Yeah, the people really, when trying to get really technical and try to find the perfect thing, I think people undervalue the idea that you just want some shit that's going to work, and want some shit that you can just be creative and make things quickly. And I think, looking at your setup, which I know you showed a little bit on your story the other day, it just looks fun. It looks futuristic. It looks inspiring. And there's something really important about just having a setup where you want to have fun and make records. I mean, and it's a different thing if you're a mastering engineer, you need a different kind of setup. But if you're producing, like, switching it up, moving around, trying new shit, like, having fun doing it, and having reliable gear, not just being a reliable person, but having reliable gear so you can go in and just be creative.
It's really interesting because, like, I'm always fighting myself. But so in my studio, I feel like, I'm probably 25K in at the moment with just like speaker versus desk versus hardware versus whatever. And now I look at that as a fucked up thing in a way, because now I'm stuck here. Before I used to be able to just take my laptop and boom, but now it's like, I need a UAD satellite because now I'm addicted to UAD. So now I'm purging myself with UAD now. And I went and bought
that's
plugin
why
Alliance.
I never started doing the UAD plugins. I mean, I have an Apollo, and I
by the
have
way,
stuff,
I'm selling,
but I don't want to go to a place.
So I'm selling my I'm selling my satellite. Anybody want to buy it? It's $1,000. Pay $900. It's an octo, and you can stay on my account because I'm sponsored. So I have like 365 days left of just UAD plugins. So someone DM me if they want that shit.
This is turning into QVC.
It's coming to fucking Craigslist, QVC, baby. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that idea. I really like that idea of, and it's crazy because I have a bunch of analog synths and a piano and all this kind of stuff, but it's almost like for the advanced level producer or whatever the fuck that means, the idea of having a setup that's both exciting and dynamic, and you can have different inputs and cool technology, but then also being able to take it somewhere and just create.
Yes.
That's really important, because you might just go over to your boy's house and just make something, and that's
Jason Scraker.
What's happening over there?
that was the Sopranos episode just started again for some reason. Just muted that.
Another thing I would say that I love to do is like practice on all things. I used to have dreams, like vivid dreams. This is one recurring dream that I was in the studio with Beyonce and Jay-Z, right? And I know exactly what studio it was. The studio, the Michael Jackson one. What am I thinking of? Down Beverly Center. Westlake. Westlake, yeah. So we're in Westlake and we're in the studio, right? And they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you do music, ooh, that's cool." And Beyonce's like super nice and Jay's super nice, and I feel like they're all there. They're like, "Yo, we don't really believe that you made this beat that got you in this room, so you need to make a beat on the spot." And at the time, they only had FL Studio. That was the dream. So I was like, "Damn, what if I had to make a beat on the spot in FL Studio?" And that's what made me get into FL Studio, bro. I literally downloaded FL Studio for that reason, and I learned it in and out through YouTube tutorials. And I really just got on FL Studio for sure. Like maybe like within the last year, I've fully committed to FL Studio, and that it happened from that dream. It's just a recurring dream that just kept happening. Like I'm like, damn, like it's so real. And I basically came through and fucking made a crazy ass beat in like 10 minutes on FL Studio in front of them. They're like, okay, he's the real deal. So my goal now is to make FL Studio like Ableton. So I basically got FL Studio like Ableton now.
So it's an interesting thing. I think it's a good thing. There's a bunch of questions about advice for people starting out. Man, I mean, the simplest advice for everybody is just make tons of shit, and try lots of things. But I like the idea of you're trying to be creative in all these different programs. It almost informs, like every time I watch somebody use a different program that I don't use, it gives me new ideas for what I'm going to do. And I imagine that if you're actually trying to actively make shit on different programs, it's just going to force your brain to do different kinds of things.
Ultimately, yeah. And then, yeah, of course, man. I think if I was talking to a person that really, truly wanted to be great, I would say download some sounds that are uniquely yours. Like, for instance, Jetson. Never heard of the guy until the baby, right? I've never heard a drum pattern or sound like Jetson until Jetson created it. It never happened. It never existed. So when people say, "Oh, yo," you can always find new shit. Like, you look at Tay Keith. Tay Keith was using basses. Like, you know what I'm saying? If you look at freaking, and that's what I would say about anyone who wants to get into music, you should study the greats. So you got like Metro Boomin. Metro Boomin would go 808 bass, 808 bass. You got DA got that dope 808 high, low. You got freaking, it's just like everyone got their thing. And then when you like look at that, you're like, oh, okay, cool. They're trying new shit. You look at my boy 30 fucking reverse 808 in the box. Like, bam. That was the first time I heard somebody do that. You know what I'm saying? And it's been there this whole time. Yeah, now everyone does the jets and bounce. Yeah, true.
Yeah, everybody's doing the jets and bounce right now.
Yeah.
You hear criticism about genres when they saturate, like trap really saturated, Metro Boomin and that sound really saturated, and people are like, oh, well, that sounds done. And it turns out it just takes somebody making a new, like a new weird 808 or a new weird bounce. There's always new stuff to do. There's always new interesting ways to push the genre forward.
If I had to go back in time, I would have ran it up. Like, I didn't do that. The one thing about me switching all those programs, there's not one record that I've placed that sounds remotely the same at all. Like, if you look at any of my songs, they don't sound nothing alike. It's almost like you're like, damn, I didn't even know you did that, Donut. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's also an issue. Because it's like, it's a good thing because I guess longevity, if you really look at that, you could be like, oh, okay, I could do this genre, and not be typecast. And I guess that's, for me, as Girls Love Donut, that's a really plus. But like, only thing about doing Instagram Live versus Zoom, it's no way to cut off the phone, when you're doing it. But essentially, damn, I lost my train of thought. But I guess what I was saying was,
you're talking about you make a diversity of genres of styles and things like that. Yeah.
Run it the fuck up. If you do one thing well and it hits, run it up and get the bag, and then be creative and do whatever the fuck you want to. I think with my momentum, when I did like We and all those, and I didn't do more of that type of record. Like I didn't do more of those chords. I never pulled up that same session and used those same drums to make a new beat. Whereas I know producers that do that. When they have a hit record, they'll open up the exact same session and use all the same sounds and make a whole different beat with those same sounds. It's something to be said about using the same sounds. I don't do it, but it's something that I'm about to start doing. Same kicks, same kick, same snare, same, high. And so when you get over there, it's almost like when you wake up, this is my template. Bam. I use Atmosphere. I use this. I use that. Bam.
Yeah, that's something I've never really done either. I mean, I think that my journey as a producer and a writer has always been about trying to find new things that are exciting to me. So I've had like an EDM hit, like pop rock hit, like hip hop sounding stuff, country records. And I think that people, as they're starting out as a producer, you don't have to be one way or the other, but it's worth being honest with yourself about what you like. And do you want to kind of go on a singular journey where you're really, there's like, I don't know, I'm trying, someone like Mustard has such a sound, although Mustard's now done some other kinds of records, but there was a 5-6 year period where it was just like that sound was everything. And why not? Like, go after it. And the question is, do you want to have? Okay. Go ahead.
No, my fault. The question?
I was just gonna say, like, do you want to be doing the same thing in 20 years? Is kind of the question, but it's also like just what excites you. Do you want to go deeper on a narrow place? And that's honestly that's a great thing for some people. It's not really how I am. It doesn't sound like it's exactly how you are, but also that on some level, on like a meta level, now you're going to try doing that more, and you'll see how it is. I'm curious to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it for like 2. When I do things, I do things in like 2-week increments. So it's not like a long thing. I'm literally just gonna do it for 2 weeks. Like, so for instance, like this last week, I didn't play any instruments. I said I'm only going to use the sample packs that my boys sent me, and I'm gonna make that happen. I'm gonna tell you why, because one of my boys, it was actually the dude called it, my boy Rocky. He was over here like, I was like, man, I'm not sampling no more, man. Publishing and all this other stuff. Woo woo. He was like, Kanye's a millionaire off of samples.
Yeah,
that was the statement. It was just like, why am I being so hard on myself for being technical? When actually people really don't give a shit. Like, I hear some of the worst mixes on the radio on Spotify. I'm like, man, they didn't give a shit. It literally went from their Apollo, boom, straight to the fucking radio. Like, no mix, no master. And it's up. It's like popping, But then you'll hear the records that really are mixed, really fucking them up, like a Jason Joshua mix or a Manny mix. A Manny mix is going the fuck out of the world with it, or Serban when it comes to Ariana. It's like you hear those mixes and you're like, man, fuck. So yeah.
Well, in the end, it comes down to making hit songs that people want to dance to, and you can have bad mixes, although it helps if you have better mixes and better sounds. But you're absolutely right. Like, I'll flip a sample and give away 90% of the publishing. I'll take 10% of a hit. Like big hit songs are bigger and better than everything. It doesn't matter if you're flipping samples or doing whatever. Yeah,
that's crazy, man. Yeah, I really got down to that science. The science of like, just do the music for the love. Really get in and just do the music for the love. I think Quincy Jones said it best. He said, when you talk about money, God leaves the room. So. All those things that you thought were going to happen to this record that you're thinking financially, it just doesn't happen for you because that's all you're thinking about is money. So I thought that was a cool statement. And then the next statement, I guess I would probably add to like the money piece is like, it's like the energy on the record has to be good for it to pop off, in my opinion. Every record that had a split dispute or, like something weird where someone felt like they were taken for a ride or they got some publishing taken off or something, that record never does well because of the energy on the song. So I would say always go with anything in life with love and pure intentions, and you should be straight. So when you open your software, are you saying, are you having gratitude for that software? Are you thanking God? Are you praying? What is the goal when you're getting in there? I always ask people, what is the why? Why are you fucking doing this? You know what I'm saying? I remember when I first got into music, my why was very simple. I was out here with Pharrell's brother. We were going out in the streets. I was in London and Paris, all types of stuff. And my why was like, I'm doing this because I want to travel the world and meet people. I love to meet people anyway. So I'm like, I want to travel the world. I want to meet people. And I want all my fucking friends and my family to be able to do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
That's why I started music. I've always been paid in other areas. So it's like I didn't have to like do music to be rich, So I think that's the goal, the why. Why are you fucking doing this?
The why is very important, and the why gets tested a lot once you start, because so much of us, we make music before there's money, and then when money gets involved, that's when the why gets tested, and that's everybody goes through it, and everybody goes through cycles, and some people get caught up in it, but the people that are the happiest, make the best records and have the longest career are going back to that fundamental why of like, I love making records. I want to make records with my friends, or I want to travel, or I want to try new things, or I want to do one thing and go down a tunnel and see how deep I can go on it. But man, LA is a crazy place for that, especially, and the industry is like it will pull you away from the why for sure.
I'll give you a prime example, and I'm not going to say their names, but there's this big pop writer. There's a small pop writer and a big pop writer. The big pop writer isn't saying anything. She's super cool. The other pop writer is like really on that songwriter argument versus producer thing. So what ends up happening is it's a song I did 3 years ago. They asked me for the beat and the acapella for a Korean group, whatever. So the Korean artist label thing comes back with a number that's like extremely low. Like extremely low. Like it's just like I can't do that number, because if I do that number, then now the number I worked for, I can't even get that number, because people are like, well, you did this record for 5,000. That's what the number was. So the songwriter is like, yo, we're going to split this 3 ways. They didn't even really ask me. It's just like, we're going to split this 3 ways. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. How are you going to recoup it? That was the question. How are you going to recoup it? Are you suggesting that you also are getting points, right? So he's like, yeah, it's just only fair. It's the conversation. Me being a songwriter, we're only going to make $1,000 on the back end, so we need to share in this thing. So I'm like, interesting. I'm also a songwriter, and I totally understand the argument, and I do believe songwriters should get points. I feel like the label gets 84 points, so why can't those points come from the label side, right? Yeah. But regardless of that long conversation, what ends up happening is I make another suggestion. Here's the suggestion, just so I'm not a dickhead. Hey, guys, let's do it for free, and let's just split it evenly. So if it's us 3 and the songwriter, let's just do 25% of the master each. Do you understand that came back with a strong no from her? Strong no.
How?
Like, no.
How?
Because I don't think I don't know why she said no. I can't speculate on that. But her why is fucked up. And it's why she doesn't have bigger records. Because her why is, you wouldn't give that away for free to get more on the back end? I don't need $1,600 or $5,000. I could use it. I would probably give it to my mom if I took that particular thing. But I think her thing was more so just like, just a hard no. I'm over here like, yo, you want to be equal? Let's just do it equally. The love of it is it's a great record. If you're tired of it sitting on your computer and you have someone that really genuinely wants to do it, let's do it. Why do we got to do money? Let's sweat equity.
It's something you said before too about momentum, because momentum is not just with your own creativity, but momentum is with relationships. If you have good relationships with people and you write a few songs and you start to get some traction, that's the time to not be precious and like double and triple down and make 25 more records with that team of people, or your producer collaborator, or that top line, or that artist, because you get excited about the first thing, and a few people get excited, and then people start talking money, and if you get weird in that situation, that ruins the creative momentum between parties. Because really, if you guys have something great, it's way better for you to go make 20 more than it is to worry about the fine points. Because again, it gets back to the why. If you're if you're in this thing to make money, you're not going to be as successful as if you're in this thing for the love of music and trying to make the best thing with people that you love.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not telling people like to not be on their business. Business is business.
Of course.
That's why you have like creatives, like that's why you have managers, that's why you have, publishers. They're here to protect your interest and their interest also. So I did that. But yeah, ultimately, make sure you guys, your why, man. Your why is very important, dudes. Let's get on some geek shit. I feel like they're on here for some geek shit. Let's talk some geek shit.
Yeah, we can do some geek shit. People were asking about vocal chains and things like that. I don't really talk about my vocal chains. You can see those are my 2 vocal mics right back there. I got a long body U47 from the 50s. It's a beautiful Neumann tube mic, and then I got a 70s U87. And I use the 87 more than I think I use the 47. I just kind of like it. The 47 is a little bit sort of mid-rangey and brighter and great, but I mix it up. My preamps are Undertone Audio MPEQs, basically the only amazing new analog gear of the last few decades, made by Eric Valentine, who was my mentor for years. And so I put a little EQ on there. The preamps are incredible. I gotta get you on those.
Yeah, because I went and got a clone. I went and got the Golden Age, by the way, which is a really affordable preamp. It's called Golden Age Project, and it's the pre-73 MK3. It's $350, and it separates you. So like most people are using plugins, I would always tell people vocal chain, if you can get yourself a preamp, microphone to preamp, which preferably like a Neve 73 clone or something, to a compressor. Your vocals are always going to shoot through the mix way different than if you were just using software plugins. There's no plugin, including UAD, that doesn't have that bright sheen. And that bright sheen isn't what you want all the time. You just want transparent warmth in your face. And I think you can do that with hardware.
Like in the comments, spending more money there. Yeah, it's problematic. You start talking about gear. I mean, the truth is gear is not going to make a great song. But man, if you're gonna spend money anywhere, once you get monitoring and get your reliable computer set up, a vocal chain is the thing. And I have a Revision F1176 that's like an old 1176, adds a little coloration. I got distressors for some stuff that I sort of, because they're really versatile for recording guitar, something like that. But yeah,
Swiss Army knife.
Those are my 2 vocal mics. The 47 and the 87, and then a Revision F1176 and Undertone preamp. That's my.
So if I was a new person and I had a limited budget, I would say like there's an A, B, and C. So I would say like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, cinnamon squares, and there's like powdered squares or whatever. And it's
I like that Cinnamon Toast Crunch is the peak. That's absolutely
that is it, man. So like we're Cinnamon Toast Crunch right now. You got the vintage mics, you got all this stuff. You're spending all this money. You definitely notice the difference. You definitely hear the difference, but you can achieve that same thing. So I think for the most part, if I was to recommend a portable setup, I would say a Mac for sure. Just because it's a little bit more versatile. It won't break down on you. An Apollo. Actually, I would say an SSL. Hold on. This thing here
he's going.
is amazing. But let me see if I have it.
I love the Apollo stuff. I have the big, I don't know what it is, the big Apollo 16 or something like. Oh yeah. I've seen those. Yeah.
Yo, bro, it's a Firewire joint. This joint might be like $300. I'm talking about pristine 2 headphone joints on here, so you can like record and a thing. It has a really, really good transparent sound. It's pretty dope. Apollo, I think, makes a good product, but they have a noise floor on it. Like you turn it all the way up, it has like a hiss to it. Like it has something going on in the circuitry on all of them. It's not the rack, but definitely the Arrow for sure. The Arrow definitely.
Yeah, maybe those preamps are a little bit cheaper. Yeah. I mean, I'm using all outboard preamps, so my interface, I don't have preamps on my interface.
Yeah.
What's your vocal mic in there?
I have the Neumann TLM 103. I went with that one because it has a similar thing as a U87, and for the most part, those things, all it is really an EQ curve to me. The difference between certain Neumann. So like if I take the TLM 103, there's a software called Mic Mod, which you can basically get from Antares for $99, and you literally can put the mic that you have, and then you can put what you want that mic to sound like. I did a shootout with a U87. It sounds damn close. So I did a shootout with a U87.
Does some adjustments for you.
It does an EQ curve that makes it like, if you look at the concept of the U87, it's a little bit like more warmer and muddy in certain things, and the TLM's a little too bright. So that EQ curve makes it sound like the U87. Perfect.
Can we see your screen setup?
I don't have it set up.
You got like 6 minutes. Oh, you don't have it set up right now. Okay.
Yeah, because basically I thought we were going to do a Zoom. Oh, you mean like the actual setup of the studio? You mean the studio? I can't show you.
I'm just curious about your. I would love you to just talk about your screen setup and what you're trying to do with it.
Let me see, man. Let me see if my shit's crazy cool. So yeah, I mean, this is the screen. Like, this is the desk. Like, mine is the fucking Nutra Air, light sponsored by Lysol. You know,
that's right. Man. You got to keep it fresh.
So this is like the setup. You know, if I back out, barefoots, took Mac monitors, put those over here. Got another HP monitor behind here. This was the Need Pre I was telling you about. You know what I'm saying? I'm using a warm audio compressor, but I actually just went down and bought fucking Pro Tools HD Omni. So, you know, I'm HD now with that shit. And then on the back, I kind of just like have like my racks and, you know, drawers and, you know, like little shit, like, you know, just whatever, man. Just geek shit, bro. You know.
I like it, and I like that it looks cool. And feels fun. I mean, we talk about, you know, the setup being something that you want to actually just enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it is creative. Like, what I realized is, man, you need a double screen. So with the new laptops, especially with like Catalina, you can basically use like your iPad as a second screen. I just think it's always cool to be able to put multiple things. So what I do is I'll put like a mixer thing on one side, and then I'll put like 2 programs up there. So I might have Pro Tools. Well, now with HD, I can't have multiple things open, but I would do like Ableton and FL Studio. Like, I'm looking at it. You know what I'm saying? Or I might put like the splice shit, you know what I'm saying? Like on one side. Or I might use like, have you ever heard of something called Audio Finder?
Audio Finder? I don't think so.
Man, it's like this program where you can just basically go through all your sounds, or you can just drag and drop, or you can hit a button and just shoot it straight to your DAW. And it's really good for Pro Tools. I don't think Pro Tools has a good system where you can locate sounds quickly, you know? So it's called, you can use that one. Or you can use a free program called ADSR Sample Manager.
That's definitely the thing that Pro Tools sucks at.
Yeah, but ADSR Sample Manager works in Pro Tools, and you can also do the same thing that Audio Finder does. So, you know, it's pretty cool.
That's great.
It's pretty fucking dope. Yeah.
We got about 5 minutes left. I'm gonna see if there's any.
I think we should run it up again, because we didn't answer really any questions, man. We should just, when this shit ends, we should do it one more hour, man. Fuck it.
Well, I can't do another hour today, but let's come back in a week and do it. I mean, you know, having these conversations, you know, I think people like to tune in and just watch 2 producers talk shit. So I think it's good. I think it's good. I'm definitely down to do this again.
Let's answer a couple more questions. Let's see if we can.
There was a good question. We could probably do a fucking hour on this one.
Right.
So basically, how do you convince an artist when you're working with them to go further on lyrics? To basically, like, if an artist is satisfied with something that's like not that great, how do you push an artist in the room?
You can't.
What do you mean? Tell me.
Well, I believe that, you know, you're with that artist because you trust what that artist does or what that artist brings to the table. If you knew it, you would maybe yourself,
they trust
right?
you.
Yeah, I mean, if the artist trusts you, then that's when you could do it. But most of the times, especially with COVID now, you know, you're not going to be in the room with the artist unless you were in the room with that artist before that, probably, for the most part. So you're just going to be sending ideas. I think the whole thing is all about energy. So, like, there's certain people like Nicki Minaj that might rewrite a song 8 times. She said she did for like that one record. and then there's people that might revisit it. But at the end of the day, it's something to be said about trusting the person that you're giving the music to. So if you're like, man, like I sent a record to an A&R, I'm not going to say his name. He handles this artist, big artist. And he was like, yeah, the beat's hard. I don't like the hook. So I was thinking to myself, like, what does that mean? Does that mean you're not going to play the beat for the artist with the hook on it? Like, I'm trying to understand what it means. And I don't want to actually be funny, but that particular A&R hasn't placed one record. Mm-hmm. So, it's really a battle of like, is my ear better than your ear? So I think in general, if you're telling an artist to change something, you're really essentially saying like, my ear's better than yours. Unless it's total shit.
I think the question, I think that's probably right. The question is more like in the room with people. I heard this story about like, was it Kanye on Runaway having Pusha T, and Pusha T wrote a verse, and Pusha's like, I've never rewritten a verse, but Kanye was like, you got to be better. It's got to be better than that. And there's something about it's more of a philosophical answer. Like if you hold yourself to a high standard and you build trust with the people you work with, you have more leeway to go, I think we can beat this. I think we can be better. But that's like, honestly, as a producer, that's like the ultimate skill is basically the question is, how do you get the best out of an artist that you're in the room with? And it's really about being inspiring. And, you go look at a Rick Rubin interview. Like that's basically all that guy does is get people to be at their best. Because on some level, if you can present a great track to somebody, that's one thing. But if you can get them excited, I mean, you watch Pharrell in the studio, these sort of people where you almost got to be like a salesman, hype man, babysitter, friend, confidant, all that kind of stuff. That's how you get the best, I think, on some level.
But I also think that everyone's dealing with their processes, and I think it depends. It's all communication is all configurable. Like I don't think there's one set way, maybe. And the reason why I say that is because it's like I've watched interviews with people. Like Rick Rubin to me seems like an interior decorator. So that means that every time he comes into a room, he always finds something wrong with something that you did. So I think that's an interesting thing to say. Like, like, what do you mean? Oh, yeah, sometimes it's right. Oh, yeah, this color, you could probably change these curtains or you could probably do this thing. But sometimes things are just super perfect as they are. And it's a science to the energy because of the love that was in it. And you'll have someone trying to add their 2 cents on top of it because they just want to be a part of it or just switch shit up. So I think it's one of those conversations where it's very situational and it all comes down to trust. Do you trust this person's opinion? Because it is an opinion. Yeah. And do you believe that opinion or that change is going to add crazy value? Like this one song I just did recently with the artist. She's like wanting to change the key. She's like, what do you think? Doing this key or that key? I'm over here like, what do you think? You know what I'm saying? I was like, play them both. I played them both. I was like, they're both dope. They both have different energies, but they're both dope. Which one do you want to do? And you're the artist. What speaks for you? So she wanted me to just basically be like, pick one. So guess what I picked? The original one. And guess what she said? I'm gonna do both.
There you go.
Then why'd you ask me, baby? Like, just do it.
Well, sometimes it's just they want somebody to confirm what they're already gonna do. I mean, look, like you said, it's very situational. It's very different based on the artist, what they feel.
Go with your gut. I would say go with
and
your
build
gut.
Trust.
And build
we
trust.
We got about 1 minute left, so maybe we'll just call it here. But I'll put this up.
Let's answer one more question. One more question. We got 60 seconds left. We're not. I can do it. I promise.
I'm gonna run out of time because I sort of put a bunch of them together. Let's do it again. Let's do it again next week.
All love. Thank you for having me, Matt Rad.
Much love, yeah. I'm gonna put this on my IGTV so people can watch this again, and we'll have an audio version live with Matt Rad. And it's a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
Boom. You too, bro.
I'll talk to you soon, man.
Outro.
Peace.